Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Making Better Teachers podcast. My name is Kevin O'Shea, and each week we'll bring you teachers from around the world. They'll talk about teaching, innovation, creativity, technology, conservation, classroom management, leadership, and a whole lot more. When you listen to the Making Better Teachers podcast, you'll become more excited about teaching. You'll become more knowledgeable and inspired. This is a podcast about teaching for teachers. Settle in, get comfortable, and get ready for this week's episode. Well, hey there, folks, and welcome to episode number 26 of the Making Better Teachers podcast. And this week, another fantastic episode for you guys. This week, I'm chatting with Steve Sostak and Aaron Moniz of Inspire Citizens. They are two amazing guys who are really doing some incredible things with education. They're turning it upside down and making people think in ways they haven't thought before. These two guys are really amplifying the excitement level in the education world. And I was so happy to finally get to meet them in person just this weekend past at the Shekou SDG Summit. So the Shekou Sustainable Development Goals Summit in Shenzhen, China. So this was an event that we talked about 2 weeks ago on the Making Better Teachers podcast when I sat down with Shekou International School Associate Principal Nathan Lill, and he was one of the main forces behind putting this event together. And Steve and Aaron arrived from Beijing, and there were about 150 educators, people from NGOs, really passionate, creative movers and shakers in the educational world here in Asia. And not just Asia, there were people who came in from St. Louis, people who came in from different parts of the world, and it was a really transformative event. It really excited me. So I had the chance to do some live podcasting from the Shekou SDG Summit, and this is one of the interviews I did. Now, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are something that we're hearing more and more about. The world we live in is in a lot of trouble, and we got to get working real fast and be very active in reversing things that have been happening and getting creative to just make sure that for future generations, our world is going to be an inhabitable, livable place. So my takeaways from this weekend, I was really excited. I have been inspired to take my love of the outdoors, my passion for teaching little ones, about getting little ones and their parents excited about the outdoors to a new level. Because the one thing I said at the end of this interview, near the end of it, as the SDG that I connect with is number 15, all about life on land. Because I'm a big biodiversity freak. I'm all about really trying to create a future generation of conservationists, of children who care about the world and that will grow up to take care of our world. That's what I want, and I'm going to take it to a next level. I want to take it something outside of my classroom, outside of my school, to a different level. So that's something I can talk about in later episodes of the podcast. But again, this week, I got to sit down with Aaron. Actually, we stood for this interview with Aaron and Steve. They're going to mention these later on in the podcast, in the interview portion. But if you want to find out the exciting things that they're doing, go to inspirecitizens.org, inspirecitizens.org, and you can follow them both on Twitter. Steve is InspireCitizen1, and Aaron is at InspireCitizen2. But yeah, it was a fantastic interview. Great to meet them in person. I know you guys are going to really enjoy this episode. Again, for all of you who may be jumping in for the first time, the home of this podcast is at makingbetterteachers.com. Go check all the notes will be there. All the links we talk about in this interview will be in the show notes there. Follow me on Twitter at MadFromApple. I'm doing a lot of stuff there. If for whatever reason you live in the Hong Kong, Shenzhen area, I have started a new group called Nature Shenzhen. That's on Facebook. We got a Facebook page. And on WeChat. So obviously there's a China connection, and it's already grown bigger on WeChat than it has on Facebook. And that's a chance for me to try to build community in the area of people, like-minded people who care about conservation, who care about nature, who care about the outdoors. And, an opportunity for me to help educate more people about the natural world around us. All right, guys. Well, enough about that. Go check out all those links I mentioned will be in the show notes. Also, one thing I forget to mention each and every week is that The Making Better Teachers podcast is part of the voiceed.ca podcast network. Now, voiceed.ca, that link will be in the show notes as well, is a hub of fantastic education podcasts. So if you go to voiceed.ca, you will find the Making Better Teachers podcast and a ton of other fantastic education-related content. So go there. They've got players embedded on the website. You can listen to so many incredible shows, a lot of original content, great things. So please go check out the voiceed.ca education podcast network. That's one that this podcast is a part of. All right, guys, time for the interview.
Please hang up and try again.
So I'm standing here today at the Shekou SDG Summit with Inspire Citizen 1, Inspire Citizen 2. So I was wondering if you guys could just introduce yourselves and let us know who you are.
All right, well, we're closing the door here, so just to get a little more intimacy with this discussion.
Yeah.
I'm Inspire Citizen 1, also known as Steve Sostak. I've been a teacher for 16 years before we started Inspire Citizens, originally from Chicago. I was lucky enough to be teaching internationally in Peru, where sort of my family life sort of exploded through some adoptions and, you know, having a child with my wife, who's an amazing teacher. And then lived in Malaysia and taught there for 5 years as a middle school teacher after being a grade 4 teacher, and then moved to International School Beijing. And along the way, I've been doing a lot of service learning, for example, and teaching that embedding it in my classroom. But then when I met Aaron at the International School Beijing, we really connected. We were co-teaching together, and that kind of was where the Inspire Citizens idea, I guess the seed was planted, right? Where we just started saying, why can't, you know, we have everybody have these opportunities to look at how you can make, you know, learning, you know, so impactful for communities and really put kids in charge of that. So that's kind of a little of the background for me, and then pass it over to Aaron.
Yeah, well, my name is Aaron. I am a proud third culture kid, grew up going to international schools, graduated from IB diploma in Abu Dhabi, and my parents are educators, administrators, and so I've always grown up sort of in the school system.
Okay.
And I don't know, I think I got into education originally in special ed, and I've been a learning support teacher for the last 10 years. I worked in this really awesome program that did all interdisciplinary units where you took math, science, humanities, design, tech, and all subjects worked together to answer the same driving question over like 12-week projects, and they were all social action oriented. Okay. And I had a history of sort of service learning before that. So from my international background and sort of how I grew up in education, that was my spark for Inspire Citizens.
Okay, so Inspire Citizens, for those out there, the uninitiated, awesome. Those who don't know, and I'll admit,
yeah.
Like, I mean, I was in Beijing the last few years before I came here to Shenzhen, and I started following Steve on Twitter first, and I would see this Inspire Citizen 1. I was kind of like, what is that? Inspire Citizen 2, and I'd follow your Twitter feed and kind of see what was going on, but for those who may not know what you guys do, for those who might not really know much about service learning, and that type of thing, and throwing a lot at you guys, SDGs, all of these things. What is Inspire Citizen?
Well, I think the two key words for us are empathy and impact. You'll see us a lot, you know, even one of the hashtags of this conference is empathy to impact. And that sort of sets, I think, forth a lot of the mission of what we're doing in schools. I'll pass it to Aaron because he's usually really good at sort of the elevator pitch version of what that
Sure.
is. And then I'll maybe come back and talk a little more about the student side or the student impact
Sure.
profile, because I think those are two of our biggest, you know, what Inspire Citizens really is.
Well, so I'll do, like you were saying, the SDGs are the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and it basically says that the world needs to start making some serious progress towards these 17 goals, like no poverty, gender equality, climate action, right? And so basically, the Sustainable Development Goals sort of help us to frame what are the world's biggest needs.
Okay.
All right. If you're talking about service learning is actually, if done properly, is a reciprocal learning opportunity by which you take education or you take educational opportunities and do something for a community in need. And if done improperly, you give them stuff. But if you're done in a way that it's really beneficial service learning, the students are taking from their experience in the community, and then they're also trying to give something back to meet an identified need.
And a quick piggyback, I think, on that is also one of the things that we push is this idea, we want that as much as possible embedded into the pre-existing curriculums and context of these schools, because I think often you get service learning that are really connected to after-school clubs, for example. And then not every student gets that experience to go through a service learning cycle, for example. But also it becomes another thing, right? And that adds to kids, service should be an extra in some ways, right? Yeah. But if we can embed it in ways that's more seamless, it becomes, I think, better for both student well-being and teacher well-being in the sense that now it's within the confines of the curriculum, and the class, and the standards, and it's just something we live and we do, right? So and I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so I think that sort of if you take the idea of the world's biggest needs, you take the idea of service learning and using education to do something for other people, those were sort of the foundations to the idea of the empathy to impact approach that frames what Inspire Citizens does. And basically we take existing curriculum and we say, how can you link that to something that matters in the world, whether it be an SDG or whether that be a community-based issue? And then we'll say, how can I use my science standards of blank, blank, blank? How can I use my math standards of blank, blank, blank? How can I use my argumentative writing, in humanities in order to develop some kind of an impact project that actually benefits a community? And then learn from that community while I'm learning about my standards. So it amplifies your standards, it doesn't change what the teachers have to teach, and then it just frames it a little bit differently by adding a little bit more empathy and a little bit more impact. And in the end, the community benefits, teachers get better results out of their students, and students are more engaged in what you do. And and Inspire Citizens is technically an educational consulting group, but we work with teachers on how to do that kind of curriculum design. And now we've moved past just a curriculum design, and we work to create whole school models of how can you get this curriculum design to your teachers through professional learning, and how do we create mission and visioning and implementation systems so that everyone from nursery to K-12 could be following similar approaches. So everyone in the school is doing this kind of impact-based learning.
And I think the key too with our frameworks is that idea of we create, but it's more of that co-creation, right? That we're not coming to schools and saying, here's our book, here's our model, here's our 2-day workshop, goodbye. Yeah. Right? Good luck. I think it's again that idea of we want to make teachers and administrators and students feel like we're going to be there to support them. We're going to be there in the long term, short term, and the long term. And that idea that we're going to build that internal capacity over time, that it's going to be something that does transform a school. And like Aaron said, it doesn't have to be a major shift. We always say we're not coming to flip tables, right? We're just coming to make that shift from greater empathy, greater impact, and to be there as part of that team. And that's really important to us, is that we come in and we understand the context. Because obviously, we work in St. Louis, we work in Finland, we work in Kosovo, right? And we work in Chinese international schools, and there's going to be different contexts on how we look at that. But in the end, it's coming together around some common frameworks, but obviously through different lenses.
Yeah. Well, this morning we were talking, about that 2-day workshop, Spark, or sometimes maybe not Spark, or just a Spark that fizzles. So this is the inaugural, the first. I'm not sure where we'll go after this, but the Shekou SDG Summit. And you mentioned to me this morning about wanting to go deeper with this. So I've personally experienced a lot of workshops in my career that were awesome, and I felt I took away a lot, and I stepped out the door, and like you mentioned, I may be pretty excited about something for a little while, and maybe some of my colleagues are excited for even a shorter time. And then there we go. So what is kind of the vision? We've already kind of talked about it a bit, but what is the difference between something like what we're doing here today and tomorrow versus a typical workshop?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One would be first amplifying the teachers that are already doing these things really well in their classrooms, whether we've worked with them or we've just connected to them through something like Twitter or not, and bringing those people's voices to the forefront of this movement, right? Okay. And saying like, these, and also the students we just saw, right? Here's the results of this type of thinking. Here's the results of these types of global impact frameworks or student impact profiles, or utilizing the SDG targets inside curriculum, and pulling those voices together to, in essence, build this collective. So it's something that's more than just Aaron and I, right?
And to add for, I guess, people that don't know what the SDG Summit is, right, is I think what Steve's talking about is the summit has been designed around a couple of keynotes, a lot of workshops, right, and student presentations and NGO fairs that end in sort of common visioning and collaboration opportunities at the end of each day. So when Steve was talking about empowering other teachers that are already doing it, those are the ones that are leading the workshop. And each one of their workshop has kind of active learning component that has been designed to say, how can we now collaborate in the future? Or how can you take what I've done and design something similar and walk out with something that you can use on Monday? So inherent to the way that the actual conference works is that it's not the big ones telling people how to do something. It's the people that have already tried it, sharing their experience and creating opportunities for collaboration so that other people can walk out with something that they can use. So that's inherently part of how the workshops are being run.
And then we're looking at actual professional learning communities that are going to have a level of actual, I hate to use the word accountability, but some accountability post-conference where we're getting people together. You'll see we did the activity today with the 4 colors of the Global Impact School model. And getting people together to sort of follow where they're most passionate, and then set forth some actual indicators where they're going to be during the rest of this year collecting and sharing evidence of what does that look like at your school. And then either we're coming back together virtually or doing this again next year as, this is the follow-up to what we've just started. What are the next steps? What's that level 2 or level 3 at that point? And then I think the last thing is, Aaron and I, we really are committed to, and people as we grow as a group. Now we have Kavita Tana, who's like Inspired Citizens 3 pretty soon, right? But is this idea that we really want to work with schools that want more than just the 2-day, right? We've really committed to saying we know what's best practice in professional learning, and if you only want us for 2 days, we're probably not the right fit.
Okay.
And we're looking, so that's why we've taken on a really large, we're doing 50 days, for example, with Seoul Foreign School. And 25 days with Beijing City International School. And then, we'll, don't get me wrong, we're flexible to sort of, be personalized in essence. But we really know that, yes, we can come for 2 days and get people excited, but if we really want something to change, that it's got to be more than that, and we want to work out how to do that. And as we grow, that's going to be the trick.
I'm curious, so you just used the word excitement, right? And you guys are traveling around the world. You're doing a lot of things. Finland, Kosovo, China. We're out of St. Louis. That's you guys have energy. Clear to see, and you have passion. I see that. But it's kind of it's a rigorous undertaking. So how do you keep that fire going, or is it? I'm assuming by the look of you guys, it's pretty easy. It's just going. But I mean, obviously, you've got passion. So, again, how does that keep going?
I'll jump in and just say that, I think two of the biggest things that stand out for me are the idea that, one, teacher and consultant wellness is number one.
Okay.
And you got to make sure that, you're eating, you're staying healthy, but you're also staying inspired. And so the part 2 of that is what helps keep us inspired is the fact that every single time we step into a room, we're in a room with dedicated teachers. We're in a room with people that just want to do what's best for kids, and they're not sure how to switch that impact light bulb on. And then once you get them to switch that light bulb on, and everybody in the room is kind of like, ooh, that's good. You get those goosebumps just thinking about it. And the fact that we get to do that 6-7 times a day, every day, in all these different countries, it doesn't, as long as you get in a run and you get in a little bit of good food afterwards and a bit of sleep, you can keep doing that forever.
I can see that being addictive,
And I think there's that, we always talk about, we listen to a really good podcast, actually, of David Brooks of all people, and talks about sort of the resume self versus the eulogy self.
Okay.
And I think for me, it's that idea of, we have a limited time on this earth to do good, to bring people together, to build community. And for me, those are things that are extremely important. And as a teacher, we did that. But I think being able to get beyond the walls of just the classrooms and the pockets where we were has really built a fire inside me that it's just something that, and I hate to say take it to the grave, but like I really want my eulogy self to be built around that. I really was hoping that we could make an educational transformation for good. And I think the cool thing is we're still linking it to standards. Right? It's not like, again, you don't have to recreate everything. It's just we can do this if we just do it right.
Take what you're already doing, right, and find little switches so that we can empower the hundreds of thousands of teachers and millions of students around the world to take one small thing that they want to actually try and impact and do it. Don't wait for bigger organizations to try and take control of that stuff. Let's get our kids to do it.
I guess that kind of falls into the whole play. Like when you hear the cynicism of some people are like, well, climate change, what am I going to do? I'm just one person, right? That kind of...
Well, I think it's Jane Goodall who talks about that one piece of the puzzle, right? Yeah. And if you could imagine, that one of our go-tos is that talent plus target equals vocation activity, where we're linking what we're good at and our skills to one of those UN targets, the 169, right? Yeah. And if we can just imagine if every single person in the world had just done one talent target, self-assessment or vocation seeking or whatever, I think we'd be in a better place.
Well, and I think we're also at an opportunity right now where it's like, like doing service or doing, having an impact on somebody used to be such like a thing that like, oh, you put on a college resume and it's like, look at me, I'm special. I think we're getting to a point now where everybody realizes like you got to do something. What's your thing?
Especially now,
right? And as soon as you can have that common vocabulary, like, hey, what's your thing? Like, what if we can get
number
that
15,
like
biodiversity. That's my thing. Teaching kids that, man. That's totally my thing.
Well,
yeah. So okay, I don't want to keep you guys longer. You guys are busy. You got a lot of stuff to do. I'm curious. So if people want to find out more about Inspire Citizens, where can they go to find out more about what you guys do?
InspireCitizens.org, not inspired. We get that a lot of time.
Okay.
Inspire. We're in the process. We're in the process of inspiring, but InspireCitizens.org. Twitter is where I spend most of my time sharing information and student learning and teacher learning. So it's at InspireCitizen1, no S.
I'm Inspire Citizen 2. But if you also don't use Twitter and you want to follow along on Instagram or Facebook, we also have Instagram and Facebook accounts. Not as well populated as Steve's Twitter, but we're available and our emails are right on the webpage and it's easy, just Aaron@InspireCitizens.org or Steve@InspireCitizens. And we do our best to try and respond to people when we can. So if you can't find it on the website and you want to reach out and you have a question or you want to get in touch with us, feel free to find us on any of those media.
And thanks for having us. We love your podcast, and it's just been finally great to meet you face to face.
It's pretty cool.
I really appreciate what you guys have done with this summit, and I can't even imagine it being any more smooth and just inspiring. Everything that's happened on day one has been unbelievable. So.
And I think too, to add to that, thank you, is the idea that part of the reason why this summit is different is because we're trying to find ways to continue the learning outside of the actual 2 days because we realize that that's a flaw. And I think what you're doing right now with this exactly fits
the
that
plan
mission.
is there's a lot of other people I'm going to be talking to, a lot of other great stories to share with all the people out there who listen to the podcast. So I'm just happy to just share the awesome.
Share the awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
That's cool.
All right.
Thank you so much for everything.
Take care, guys. That's awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Making Better Teachers podcast. You can find out more about the podcast by checking out our blog over at makingbetterteachers.com. You can follow me, Kevin O'Shea, over on Twitter @MadForMaple. We are a new podcast, and you can help us get noticed and help us succeed in a few ways. First, you can head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review and rating for us right now. Next, and most importantly, you can share us on your social media. I'm sure you follow teachers and other teachers follow you. Share this podcast on your Twitter feed, your Facebook, and any education-related Facebook groups you may be part of. Help us grow, and we'll be around for a long time. We'll see you again next week, folks, with a brand new episode of the Making Better Teachers podcast. Be happy, be healthy, and we'll chat again next week.